What do we have? We got 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 9. Just go ahead and go. Okay. Yes. So I'll talk about that basically. So what I want to do is we're gonna cook these portables that I'm so keen on and that I've been using for years, and you guys have seen me use them on bike rides and stuff. They are the way I have to travel when it comes to big events, because I just can't handle the goos and the gels and hard bars, and some of them work, but most of the time they give me indigestion. So that's what this is all about, and this is how I came to doing this. The other thing is I'm going to actually set this up to be the spotlight, and this is my handheld camera right here that I'm pointing at. It's a phone, of course, but if you want to see the action, you should have it. It should be on speaker view, not gallery view, and this camera is going to move in and out with whatever that I'm doing, so you get to see it close. You want to see this action, this is where you want to be. Okay, so let's just start with what we're going to end up making. And I'm so psyched that Blake, my buddy Blake from Philly, is here, because one of these recipes for these rice cakes is called the Blake Special. And the reason it's called the Blake Special is because years ago, Blake came up with this sandwich that had blueberries and coconut and peanut butter and all this really cool stuff. And, you know, it was great. I mean, it's super caloric, but that's great when you're on the bike. And years later, when I started making these things, I'm like, that would make a really cool rice cake. So that's one of the things that we're going to be doing. We're going to make this rice cake that's called the Blake Special. And that's going to happen a little bit later. The other thing that we're going to make is these pasta nests. And you can make these in a normal version that has eggs and pancetta, which I gave you guys the recipes for on the site, or this vegan version that I'm going to do today. The technique for them is identical. The only difference, of course, is the ingredients. So that, you know, if you're going to make the omnivore version, just follow along exactly what I'm doing. If you're going to make the vegan version, that's what I'm going to do from the get-go. There's also a technique for wrapping these things and making them, you know, portable. So basically, when you're out on the bike, you're going to take one of these cakes, and well, not when you're out on the bike, before you go out on the bike, you need to wrap them up. And there's a pretty cool technique for doing that. I'm going to show you how a little bit later. So, but basically, when you're on the bike, you can have, you know, as many of these you need in your back pocket. Pull it out, open up the tabs on the side, take the tab on the front. When you pull it out, you've got this thing that you can eat on the bike, and then take as big a bite as you possibly can, so you can't speak for the next 10, 15 seconds. But, you know, that's it. And you can rewrap them, eat part of it, keep going. It works great. So always follow it with a little bit of hydration. Okay. Now I can speak. All right, so there's a few things that have to happen when you're going to go ahead and make these things the way I'm going to do it in this class, because I'm going to make a couple things at the same time. And we will bounce back and forth between the pasta nests and the rice cakes a little bit, but for the most part, we need to get some things going first. So the pasta nests are going to get big. So you need to put your oven on to 350 for the Americans and 177 centigrade for the South Africans. Okay. Turn that on. The other thing is you're going to boil some pasta. If you haven't already boiled it, I haven't done mine yet, so it's no big deal. But you need a pot of water, big enough for whatever you're going to be making, and get that going now. So I'm going to turn it on so it starts boiling. It'll get to boiling long before I need it. but I don't want it to be cold. I want it to be hot. We'll turn it down once it gets boiling. And then the other thing that we need to do is we need to prep the rice. So when it comes to these rice cakes, these rice cakes, they're made with sushi rice. And the sushi rice it's pretty starchy, the way that it's made. And it has a lot of residue on each of the kernels on the outer parts from the manufacturing process, just from the starch in general, from being in the bag, the whole deal. And that residue, that starch on the outside will keep it from being sticky. So you have to rinse it off. It's the kiss of death to make these things without rinsing the rice first. In general, I kind of rinse my rice almost every time I make it, no matter which kind it is. But I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. And if you should do it with me. So I'm not going to, the recipe that I sent you talks, is for doing a very big batch, like a big 9 by 12 inch pan's worth, which will give you about 15 cakes. I'm not going to make that many because they don't last all that long. They'll last about 3 to 5 days tops, and I may not eat them all. So I'm going to make a small batch, but you can cut that in half, or you can cut it into a third and do as much as you want. So for me, I'm going to take 1 cup of rice. I'm going to put it into the strainer. We're going to take it over to the sink and rinse it out. I'm going to get about 6 rice cakes out of this, 5 to 6. Okay. So let me just fill it up here and show you what's going on. So if you take a look at this here right now, this is very cloudy. You can see this is all that stuff that's coming off the rice cake, not the rice cakes, the sushi rice. And you need to get this clear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run water. I'm going to use my hands while the water's running and give this, give it a lot of action, a lot of, scrubbing basically against the strainer, and to get all that stuff off and dump the water out from time to time. Probably going to take about 3 or 4 cycles. And if you're doing a big batch, if you're doing 3 cups worth of rice, that could take you, a couple of minutes to do. But you got to get it as clean as you can. Yeah, this is pretty good. Okay, it's never going to get actually perfectly clear, but you want to get as much of this residue off as possible. So now we're going to go ahead and put it, start to steam it. So I've got just a sauce pot. You can use a rice cooker if you have one. Sauce pot's just fine. The amount of rice, you want about 1.5 times the amount of water. So I've got a cup of rice, I've got a 1.5 cups of water already in here. I'm going to put a good size pinch of kosher salt in there. And then add the rice. Too much of a mess. All right, give it a stir. Hey, I used my hands to rinse it. Doesn't matter if I use my hands to stir it. And then go ahead and get it turned on, because this is going to take 20 minutes to steep, and then we'll turn it off and let it sit for 10 more minutes, and then we're going to cool it off on a sheet pan. So turn this on, get it to a boil. Don't let it over boil. Don't let it flow over. But keep an eye on it, and we're going to move on to doing some other things. You will need, this is a long time away, but basically a sheet pan or something like it to cool it off when it's done. Because before we form those rice cakes, we're going to want the rice to be cool. What's up? How's everybody doing?
They're done already.
They're done already. That's great. I can see my rice is now boiling. So turn it down as low as possible, all the way down to the lowest simmer that my stovetop can do. Put the cover on, and we're going to start a timer for 20 minutes. And I always use timers because I get talking and I forget stuff. Let me tell you about the time that I served a salmon that was like a shoe because I forgot how long it was on the grill. Anyway, yeah. So here's my rice done. So I'm going to turn it off completely. I'm going to reset this timer for 10 minutes so it, finishes steeping the water that's in there. And then when that's done, we're just going to take it out and let it cool down on the sheet pan. So my timer just went off for the rice. That means it's pretty much done, and I want to cool it off. So you should be ready to take it out and put it on a sheet pan. And it should be pretty sticky, but pretty nicely done. You can see. This timing wise, this is actually pretty good. Because we're just about there. So I'm going to head spread it out, let it cool down. And we'll be assembling those in a few minutes. So now for the rice cakes, this is pretty easy. It's mostly assembly. I need a clean bowl. All right. So we're going to take this rice, put it into a bowl. We're going to season it with coconut milk. Should be pretty much room temperature by now. So in general, there's two different kinds of rice cakes that you can make. You can make them sandwich style, so which means basically a layer of sushi rice on the bottom and a layer of sushi rice on top, and then whatever you want in the middle. You treat it like bread, basically. And then there's just basically full-on blended style, and those are pretty cool too. The Scratch Labs folks sort of came up with all of this, where they have a good recipe book of lots of different varieties, and they do like a Denver scramble that uses like soy sauce as the seasoning, others that have like lemon juice as the seasoning and coconut milk. You could do that here too. And then one of the ones that I came up with was basically espresso. So you season the rice with espresso, and then it gets blended in, chopped chocolate chips, and some lemon juice, and then you finish the top of it with lemon zest. So it's this coffee lemon chocolate thing that's like really great, but that'll be another day. Okay, coconut milk. I think I mentioned that you don't want coconut water. You want coconut milk. Coconut water is too watery. Coconut milk looks a lot like milk. It's viscous a little bit. So I'm going to probably end up putting about at least a quarter cup into this batch of rice, but you're going to pour it in and taste it after you blend it up. And what's going to happen is put the seasoning in. It's going to feel like everything's getting loose and it's unbinding and it's not sticky. But as you keep mixing, it will get stickier and stickier, and you'll be able to form. You can form balls out of it if you want to. So I'm going to start with about, it's probably about 3 tablespoons or so. I'm going to end up adding more, I know for sure. But you can see it's now loosening up. But as I keep stirring, this is going to get thicker and tighter. It's like risotto. When you make risotto, as you add the stock or whatever it is you're using for a liquid, the rice absorbs it and it starts to become, have more body to it and everything and cook through. This is kind of the same concept here. As I keep doing this, as I keep stirring, I can feel the resistance get stiffer of the rice. I can feel it giving me more resistance against my paddle. And you want that. You want to get it very, very thick and very resistant. And before I add more, I'll just pick some up and taste it. If I can taste the coconut that I want to taste, if it's, it's a subtle, I'm not going for, full on coconut flavor, because I'm actually going to add some coconut flakes to this particular bar anyway. That'll push the coconut up. But this is going to give me the stickiness I want. I feel it's pretty stiff. Let's taste and see if I need any more. Yeah, I do need more. Not enough. I want more flavor. Maybe that's a tablespoon and a half, something in that range. When you make these rice cakes, pretty much everything you do with these is to taste. In other words, I can give you amounts of ingredients and everything, but really you want to go until you can taste every ingredient to the level that you want it to be. So don't be afraid to add something, give it a little bit of taste. Just be careful with salt. We will be adding some salt to this, small amount, not too much. But when you add salt, you can never go back if you've gone too far. You can't undo too much salt. So always start with a bit less and then add more if you think it needs it. We've got a good chef pal that we do a lot of stuff here with, Chef Morella. Her favorite phrase is to taste. And how long do I cook this for? Until it's done. And how much of this should I be using? To taste. Till it's enough. And that's how she rolls. We have a lot of fun together. Okay, that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and start forming these guys. Actually, I forgot. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of salt in here, not too much. Yeah, it's a pinch. I think I've got maybe a half a teaspoon tops, maybe less. It's just a little bit. It's just going to actually make the coconut sort of jump out a bit too. And I can feel this is quite stiff. You can see my paddles bending, right? And look at how thick this is now. That's what you want. Okay, so flatten it out in the bottom of the bowl till it's level. Then we're going to take half of it. We're going to cut it in half. Take half of it. Use one side, one half for the bottom, one half for the top. Easy enough. Okay, so that's nice and level. Let's draw a line down the middle here. I'm going to take this and put it in my pan. So the pan, again, it's mostly important how tall it is, not really how big it is. I won't fill this pan, but I have done batches, like when I do stage races with my team and stuff like that here, I'll do a couple of big Pyrex pans a night for, feeding 9 guys on the road. And then just press this down. You're going to want your total height when you're done be about, oh boy, here we go. I'm going to say 1.5 inches. And what is that in metric? But here we go. It's 2 fingers. Okay. So here's one level of sushi rice. Here's the other level of sushi rice. That's how tall you want these things to be when you're done. Pretty much. Okay. So
put filling in it.
Yeah, well, the filling will add a little bit, but it's not going to add too much. Well, it might actually. They might get thicker, but it's, for the most part, you just want, a thick enough, probably about bread thickness, bread slice thickness on top and bottom. That's kind of it. Okay, so I'm going to get about 6 out of these. Yeah, roughly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put almond butter. Now, almond butter is what I prefer. I ran out of it because I did the rehearsal cook last night and I used the rest of it. So today it's peanut butter, but you can, any nut butter that you like. And when it comes to nut butters, what's the phrase? When you look at the ingredients, the only ingredient should be the name of the nut. Nothing else. You don't want any sugar. You don't want any preservatives. Just get natural stuff, just the nut itself. Some stores you can grind it yourself, but just get all natural nut butter. I shouldn't be
possible to add too much coconut.
Well, it's possible to add too much of anything, yeah. But if you think you've got too much coconut milk, let's put it this way: if you've got, whoever's asking, can you talk to me? Unmute.
Yes, it's Blake, and
Blake.
My priority is to use the whole can of. I'm going to use the whole can of coconut milk. As far as
how
taste
much rice
goes,
do you have?
3 cups.
Oh, so okay? Well, I think your whole can of coconut milk is probably too much. You're probably going to end up not being able to make it sticky enough. I mean, if you keep stirring it in the bowl, it will continue to absorb the milk. But you need it to be thick. You need it to be sticky and pasty. And if you've got too much coconut milk, just keep on stirring it and see if it thickens up, because it just might do that. But like a whole cup sounds like a lot. I don't know. How big was your can of coconut milk?
Standard can.
Okay, so I don't know if you've gone too far. My advice is you could cook another batch of small batch of sushi rice and add it to the bowl. If it's got way too much liquid, you're going to end up with a ton of rice. But it needs to be sticky. You need to go a little bit at a time when you add that stuff, so that it just absorbs as you go. Just like I said, you'd make risotto. You wouldn't like dump a whole pot of stock into a risotto, not knowing how much of it needs. That's my advice there. But if you keep stirring, it might get thicker. And if not, you can add more rice. Okay, so I've got a layer of peanut butter, almond butter, whatever you might like there. And this is Blake's recipe, man. This is like from that sandwich. It's like one of my favorite new portables too. So blueberries are going to go on. I would chop these blueberries so that they're not so big and chunky. I've got very big ones. You might have small ones. If they're small, just go ahead and add them. No big deal there. What I did want to show, which is a fun trick, though it doesn't really work all that great for blueberries because they're too small. You can cut things with 2 lids of takeout containers. If your lids have these ridges like these do, if you're going to cut like grapes or cherry tomatoes or something, you can go ahead and take your stuff and put it into one side of the lid, take another lid, tip it over, put it on top, and then fit a knife in here. Okay, I'll do it. It won't cut these right because they're a little too small, but you can imagine this working with like tomatoes really great, or grapes or anything else.
Olives. Olives. Yeah.
Olives, absolutely. Actually, my grapes are big enough that this actually worked kind of good. So you can see that most of my grapes are all cut in half. But you can just chop the grapes on the board too. I just wanted to show the trick because it's a fun trick. Okay. These are going to go sprinkled on top of the peanut butter. I've got another fun trick coming your way. Back from the high school days of working in Dairy Queens. I know you guys don't have Dairy Queen in South Africa, but Dairy Queen is a chain of ice cream shops in America. Yeah, okay, I know you know what a banana split is. Well, anyway, the Dairy Queen trick for banana splits was, of course, you peel the banana and then you throw the skin on the floor. And to break it into thirds, just take one end of it and push your finger in. And as you go down, the banana will split equally into 3 parts. Now, I don't need all this banana, but I just wanted to show the fun part. And so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and dice up the thirds for as much that I want to use. That's probably about right, maybe a bit too much. There we go. All right, and now I'm going to add a little bit of honey. Now I know honey is not a vegan item. Some people eat it, some people do not. If you don't want to use honey, you can skip it, or you can use maple syrup or agave syrup or something like that. But I'm a honey guy, so I'm going to do that. And I think honey and peanut butter go together so great. And this is how much do you like? This is to taste. So go ahead and just squirt as much as you want on there.
Yeah, no, sorry, I just wanted to ask, does the size of the fruit matter if when you cut it up, or can you just have it like any size you want?
You can have it any size you want. So here's the deal on it. It's a good question, actually. The reason I cut it is because if things are too big, if the chunks are too big, the rice cakes will fall apart. They won't stay together. You want them to stay sticky, and they want them to stay together in those wraps. And if you have big fruit bits, they will tend to fall apart when you go to unwrap them. So that's a very good question, and that's the reason to cut stuff down. And just spread it out so that you get a bit of it in every single bite. That's important.
Does it matter how small it is?
Yeah, smaller. I would definitely err on smaller than bigger. In fact, what I just did over there, we'll go back to it in a sec. Okay, so back to this. I actually think my bananas are a bit too big. I probably would cut them shorter, not shorter, smaller. But they're fine. I'm just going to keep going. And then finally, I like a little coconut, shredded coconut on here, because I didn't overdo my rice, my coconut milk. But it's optional. I just sprinkle a bit in there. It's really a great combo. The whole banana, peanut butter, coconut thing. And now we're just going to top it. Like here goes the rest of the sandwich top. Okay, let's move this out of the way. So I'll move it over here. And for this, basically, you're just going to spoon it out, small bits, and then get it across the whole top. And then we'll press it down and spread it. It's simple. So these guys, again, these need to set up too. They're going to actually stiffen up and absorb more of the moisture from the coconut milk and everything else, and even blend the flavors, in fact, over time. So you don't cut these right away. You're going to wait, put them in the fridge, cover them with like some plastic wrap, and let them sit for about a half an hour. And then you can cut them into bars, and you can wrap them in the method that I showed you earlier. Square them up. Whoops, not peanut butter on the top. That's it. That's basically it. Those are the portal spoonfuls. I intend to make these quite often. Again, you can freeze the pasta nests, no problem. If you're making a big bunch, you can't freeze these rice cakes. They never come out right after they come out of the freezer for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure it's just they get too dried out. Maybe it's crystallization of the water molecules in the rice, and they don't stick together anymore and they fall apart. But yeah, put this in the fridge for about 30 minutes before you try to cut them and wrap them.
Also work, which is white rice.
No, actually, well, brown rice, it's got to be a sticky rice. So long grain rices won't get sticky. They'll fall apart. They won't hold together. You've got to pick a short grain rice, like a sushi rice. Sushi rice is the best. It ends up being really nice and sticky, especially when we go to add things to it, because we're going to season that rice with coconut milk. And sometimes you add soy sauce. I've got a version that has a soy sauce in it. I've got another version that uses coffee to season the rice. But it won't be sticky if it's a long grain rice. So make sure it's a short grain rice, but sushi rice is really the best. Now, So, and then obviously, as before, when you go to eat these things, on the bite, pull it out, pull the tabs out. You can do this one-handed. You can do it with your mouth too, right? Pull the tab that with the label on it back, and this is definitely eatable, and it's delicious. Cool. All right. Pastanes. We make a vegan pancetta with this. If you're doing the omnivore version, you can use real pancetta and real cheese and real eggs. But in this particular version that I'm going to make, so pancetta here in the States, you can get it already cubed up, chopped up. Sometimes I think you can see it in a big roll, and then you've got to cut it to small dice like this. We're going to make something like this that is vegan, and it's going to be made with tofu, extra firm tofu. So we also here in the States have one that is already smoked. This is really cool, and it works great because it has, awesome smoked flavor. But a lot of cases there isn't that smoked version. So I'm going to go ahead and make prep this regular firm tofu and get it ready, and we'll add a little bit of liquid smoke to this because that's the way I like it. So to start this needs to be as dry as you can possibly get it. And usually it's like sitting in a container of water. You can I've dumped out the water, but you can see that this is quite wet. Take a look over at your rice if you've got it going. See if there's any bubbles there. You want to make sure that doesn't overboil. But go ahead and take this tofu and put it on some paper towels and dry it out as much as you possibly can. Cover it entirely. Give it a squeeze, push down, get as much water out of it as possible. You definitely want it to be dry. And sometimes, it's not a bad idea to even do this, a half an hour ahead of time. Just let it sit in some paper towels. You can even put a plate on it, give it a little bit of pressure, but just get as much moisture out of it as you can. So I'm going to let that sit for a minute or two. You might even need to replenish the paper towels here. I'm going to, because this is quite a wet piece of tofu. Give it another. And in the meantime, we're going to make a marinade for this. That's my pasta water going. Nope, still going. Not boiling yet. So this marinade, don't need this guy.
People started their water for the pasta.
Yes, if you haven't already, if you came in a little bit late, you need to get a pot of water boiling so that when we're going to do the pasta, if you haven't already done that. I've got angel hair, by the way, and we'll get to that, but angel hair is pretty quick. It's probably only about 3 minutes in the water, but you can use other noodles too. It's not that big a deal. So when it comes to this marinade, we're gonna basically add 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm using sunflower oil. Should be a neutral oil. Grapeseed, peanut oil, sunflower. Canola is okay. Canola has a little bit of a flavor that I don't always like, but you can do that. I've got 1 teaspoon of garlic and 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. That's going in here. I have a half teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground pepper. All this stuff goes in the pool. I've got, so you can use tomato puree, but I just instead of buying cans of tomato puree that's, usually comes in a big can, it's just too much. I use a bit of tomato paste and water. So this is 2 teaspoons of tomato paste and 4 teaspoons of water. And it doesn't matter, it's all going to get blended together once it's in here. So just drop that in. I have 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. You can use tamari or low sodium soy sauce if that's what you prefer. But It's going to give you a little saltiness, a little umami. And then finally, if you are not using smoked tofu and you'll want some smoked flavor, this is optional. I've got a teaspoon of liquid smoke, and that's up to you. At this point, we're just going to go ahead and whisk this together. Nice rich sauce right here, and you can smell that liquid smoke. It's actually, you can overdo that sometimes too, so you can be careful with using liquid smoke.
Make sure it's collected.
How's everybody doing? Is anybody, if you're cooking along, am I too far ahead? Are you guys with me? You can unmute yourself if you have a question. Everybody good? I'm going to assume by your silence that everybody's good. I can see Eric nodding that he's okay. Okay. All right. So tofu, we want to chop this into a small dice because you don't, when you see these guys, right? So this the pasta, it's going to get blended with all of this stuff. And if you have the pancetta being too big, these things will fall apart. They won't hold together like these are right now. So we want to chop this fairly small, the tofu that is. And then it's going to go in that marinade. This is also something that you can do ahead of time too. So like, it's not a bad idea to make the marinade and chop the tofu and then get it in there and let it sit for maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, something like that ahead of time before you go ahead and saute them. I'm just going to cut this into, still a little bit too wet. That's all right. It'll be fine. Okay. Some on the floor. It happens. I won't pick it up because you guys are watching.
These can be refrigerated.
Yes, they can. Yeah. What do you mean? The finished pastanas? Yes. In fact, the finished pastanas, they can be frozen too. So if you make a big batch, it's okay. They'll stand up to freezing. But the rice cakes do not. They dry out. They don't. I know people have like made big batches and like, Kevin, can I put them in the freezer and eat them later because they're just too many? And I'm like, nope, won't work. They try anyway. Same result. The rice cakes, for whatever reason, rice won't. It just sort of dries out. They don't stick together. They lose their stickiness and their clumpiness, and they don't work. So let me get this out of here. There we go. Okay. Tofu's chopped up, small dice here, as much as I can get it. I'm gonna put this right into the bowl. Give it a toss. At this point, I've got a non-stick pan. I'm going to saute these tofu in. So I'm going to turn that on to like a medium high heat. They're still coming up. All right, and then just gently toss these guys in the marinade, get them fully coated. And I'm telling you, when we're done, when these come out, I triple dare you to not eat them all before they go into the pasta. These things are so freaking good. You can snack on them, baby. They're just like, stick them on anything, and any pasta dishes, just anytime you want, that kind of thing. It's just so good. Yeah, it'll be a problem in a little bit of time here. So the other thing you're going to need is to make them crispy, you're going to want some cornstarch. I've got a tablespoon of cornstarch. I'm going to get them in the pan first, then dust the cornstarch on starch. It's a Boston way to say it. A Boston way. Starch. I'm gonna dust them with the cornstarch after they get going. And then we're gonna saute them. Be about 6 to 8 minutes. You'll know when they're done. So I got a couple tablespoons of oil.
It'd be 2, right?
That would be 2. That's right. Because couple in South Africa is not, it's not the same as couple in the US. Couple for us is pair. Okay, so let this get hot. You want it to get shimmering? I should have probably started that a couple minutes ago. That's okay. What else do we need to do here? Pretty much it. Pasta's ready to go. These guys are going in. So my oven's up to temperature. That's good to go. Non-stick spray. Almost forgot that. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but while the oil's warming up, it's empty. There's a better one. The amount of pasta that I'm going to make, I'm using a 1/4 pound, and I wrote down what that is in grams. What is it? What is it? It's about 112 grams. So that will give me about 6 pasta nests. Again, you can do the full pound and you end up just doing batches and more, and you're going to make enough pancetta to do that too. So you'll have a lot of pancetta left over. But I'm just going to make a small batch. So I'm going to go ahead and take my tin and give it a good generous spray of nonstick. And I think this pan's hot enough to go now. All right. Chuck one in. Yep, that's a sizzle. Okay, here we go. All right. I can use this guy. Let them get going a little bit. And I'm going to put the cornstarch on. This should smell really good to you guys if you're using liquid smoke and the paprika. Okay, there's a little dust. This is a tablespoon of cornstarch. Get it out. Go ahead and mix it in. And then, you know, once you've got it pretty much spread out, just let it sit. We're going to let them crisp up. So, you know, moving it around all the time, they won't really crisp up all that much. But once you've got it fully blended and it's going, just let it sit. Let it stand there for a bit. And then we'll stir it up again. We've got 10 more minutes before we turn off that. We've got the pasta that's going to go. My water's not fully boiled yet.
I'm going to put my sweet and savory in.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you for that. So one of the reasons that I wanted to do these rice cakes and these pasta nests, when I ride, when most people are out riding, you know, you get tired of one food for a very, very big, long event. So if you're doing something like the Cape Town Cycle Tour or the DC or Everesting or Cheversting, you know, you're on the bike for a long time. And I guarantee you, you don't want to eat one thing through the whole day. You're just going to get tired of it and you're eventually not going to eat it, which is the worst thing because you need to keep feeding your body. You need to keep taking on calories, especially for those really long events. So one of the things about making something that's sweet and something that's savory is it gives your mouth a chance to, you know, taste something different and gives, you know, keeps your interest in eating. And it's different for different people. Like some folks like to start savory early and then go to something sweet later in the ride when they're, when they're tired of that, or when they, it's just their preference. Other folks like it the other way around. They prefer to start sweet and then move more to salt as their, electrolytes start to get depleted and everything. They salt their sweat a lot more throughout the day. They're craving salt later in the ride. So you need to figure that out for yourself. I always try to make at least 2 different versions of something. And it can be 2 different rice cakes too. It doesn't have to be a pasta nest and rice cake and a bar. We've got a few other bars here and things that I make. I'm going to show you a little bit later. But it's a good idea to have a variety of things when you're riding. The other thing about this homemade food, these homemade portables versus goods and gels and packaged things, is these are a lot easier to digest because of their hydration level, especially the rice cakes. So when you're tired, when you're riding, and you're doing hard efforts, your digestion slows down. Your body's trying to use your blood's trying to fuel your muscles to your legs and with the working parts and all, instead of fueling, instead of working on your stomach, allowing you to digest. So it takes everything it can do to give you energy towards, driving the muscles that you need for riding and running and everything else too. So your digestion slows down. You don't feel like eating as much, but you got to do it. And with this stuff, with this food, it has a lot of hydration in it. So you don't have to like pull from your stomach, as much moisture to digest this stuff. It works great. This is getting there. Almost as crispy as I want it. Not quite yet. My pasta water is finally boiled, so that's a good thing. Bring it down so it doesn't boil off. And I'll let you sit. Trying to get a little more crispy. Okay. That's going to be really quick. So I want to pay attention to it when it goes in. I'm not going to start that just yet. We got about 4 more minutes on the rice being done. These guys, you're going to want to take these out of the pan onto a paper towel to drain. This. All right. I think these are pretty good. Let me go ahead and get a clean paper towel. Drain these off. Kind of a big batch. Okay, we'll snack on them. She's right. We will. Oh yeah, no, you can if you want to. Sure. Just if you're ahead of me, go ahead and do your pasta. Just make sure it's al dente. Don't overcook it. And you can rinse it off in cold water because it's going to get baked again anyway. So finish cooking the pasta. Drain it.
You haven't done yours yet.
Yeah, I'm going to do mine right now. But yes, try to leave as much oil as possible in the pan. And we'll spread these out to let them cool off. All right, these are good to go. In a minute. Okay, pasta. There we go. Again, mine won't take very long. I'm going to add some salt to my pot because I didn't do that earlier. Usually use a fair bit. What is that? It's probably about 3 tablespoons or so, maybe more. And my pasta is here. All right, let's get this going. This won't take very long at all. So the one thing about, I'll talk about that when I get to the rice cakes, but there's so many great portables that you can make for riding on the bike. And when I show you the wrapping technique, you'll see that you can do that to almost anything. You know, you can wrap a Snickers bar, you can wrap a donut, you can wrap, you know, bake things that you like on the bike. You can wrap just about anything. Meanwhile, I didn't make it as crispy as I like, but I guarantee you this flavor is fantastic. And it is, holy smokes. Oh, that's great. My pasta here? No. They're gonna be another minute or so. Pretty close though. Okay. Forgot to make these flags. That's not good, but we'll make them right now. Okay, so in the vegan version of these pasta nest, you need to have a binder. So in the omnivore version, the egg is the binder. You use eggs, you use regular pancetta, and then you know, blend it all together. And it when you put them in the muffin tin and bake them, it sets up, and you have this thing that holds everything together. In the vegan version, we make a thing we call Fleggs. They're flax eggs. So you use flaxseed meal, and you add warm water to that. You let that steep for a little while. I did forget to start it, so that's not so great, but we'll do it now anyway. Use a little bit of warm water. So, here's my glasses. No. It's going to be just so for each egg, I'm going to use 2 eggs, okay? For the batch that I've got. Wait, I got to make sure I don't overcook this. So you're going to use 1 tablespoon of flaxseed meal to 2.5 tablespoons of water, plus a 1/2 tablespoon of baking soda. Don't need to add the baking soda right away. So for me, I've got, what is it now again? About 1 tablespoon, right. So I need 2 eggs for the batch that I'm going to make. So I've got 2 tablespoons of flaxseed meal in there. And I need 5 tablespoons of warm water. Four, 5, okay. We're gonna let this mix up here. You can mix it with a fork or a little whisk if you've got one. And for the 2 flags that I've got going, I need 1 full teaspoon. Okay. So that'll go in there later. That's cool. Sure. Okay. Go ahead and drain it, of course. Rinse it, you know, with a little bit of cold water too. All right. Just to stop the cooking. Let's get back to these guys. This should be bloomed a bit now. It is perfect. See, this is thickened up. I'm good to go here. So now what I need is a bowl that is, yep, this is the one. I'm going to put these Fleggs, the 2 Fleggs that I have. And if you're making the omnivore version, go ahead and put 2 eggs in if you're doing the same amount of pasta as me, by the way. The baking powder, this is 1 tablespoon of baking powder. It's a half a tablespoon per Flegg, so to speak. Put that in there. Mix it up. I'm going to put my pasta in. Should be drained pretty well. Give this a toss with these tongs. Where did I put those tongs? Here we go. Try to incorporate the mixture, the egg mixture, Flegg mixture between the the strands of your pasta. Tends to try to settle to the bottom, and so does the pancetta. Hey, stop that. There. So you can take some pancetta and put it in here too. Mix it through. This tends to separate, so I end up usually adding a bit of pancetta. Actually, I could take this, put it in a bowl. It's a smarter way to go. Right? There we go. I lost half of it. So yeah. And you can do this by eye, however much you think you want. The one cool thing about this, the pancetta, is it adds this like cool little smoky, salty little bite in the middle of when you're eating this thing, and it's a great mouthfeel. It gives you a good textural change when you go ahead and eat it on the bite. All right, so now you'll see that this stuff tries to make its way to the bottom, and that's okay. We're going to rearrange it as we go from here. We're going to put this in. And I end up using my fingers as well as the tongs to do this because it just makes it, you want it to be as clean as you can. So these don't rise or change in volume or anything. So exactly what you put in is pretty much what they're going to look like height-wise and everything. So fill the cups and give them a twist. This is a lot, I think. That's too much. Take some of that out. When they're doing this with a fork might be a better way to go too. How's everybody doing? Huh. And then, if you're Pancetta's on the bottom, which most likely it is. Go ahead and just toss that on the top. Just kind of spread it out amongst your different stuck in my tongs too. And you can go to the bowl, go to the well, add more if you like. And then finally, I like to add a little bit of basil. It's an Italian dish anyway, right? So why not? And, oh, the other thing is try to keep the stuff in the actual cup, because the stragglers that end up, you know, on the top surface of the pan, you know, they get sort of crunchy. So you want to try to keep everything inside the cup if you can. Like I said, using your hands is not a problem. Okay. Let's go ahead and add a little basil. These are going in the oven. There we go. Oh, yeah. I got a tiny little basil plant. I'm not going to use much anyway, so that's okay. But I do like to sort of show the chiffonade technique, which is just fine.
Parmesan cheese that goes in there.
Parmesan cheese, yes. Thanks for that. I forgot almost that too. So in the vegan version, I use nutritional yeast. I don't know if this is available in South Africa. I imagine that it is, because vegan food is pretty much, you know, ubiquitous everywhere these days. But basically, this is very much like a cheesy grind nutritional yeast, and it gives you sort of that cheese flavor. And you can just sprinkle this on. And if you're making the omnivore version, just go ahead and take regular shredded Parmesan and sprinkle that on. If you want that, it's an optional thing. I don't always use it. I have overused regular cheese. And then when I went and opened up a pasta nest on the bike late in the ride, I was like, oh, I got a big whiff of cheese, and I didn't feel like eating it. So you have to figure out what works for you and what works for your taste. But when it comes to the basil, I like to cut it into little strips, the chiffonade style. So just take your leaves, stack them up. However many you're going to use, you probably don't need very many. And then just roll them like a joint, or a cigarette. And you roll it up into a little tube like this. And then just go ahead and cut. And you get these nice little strips. You can go ahead and sprinkle these on too. Also, basil is quite perfumey. You know, it's quite fragrant. So you need to sort of know what you like for taste, is how much of this to use. That's it. These are going in the oven. Okay, oven should already be at 350. 177, 176 for you guys in South Africa. 10 minutes. And then we're going to put a sheet of tinfoil on top and go for another 5. So it's total 15 minutes in the oven, but they will dry out. They'll get crunchy on the top if we leave them uncovered for the whole thing. So I'm going to set a timer for 10. And when that goes off, I'll stick a piece of tinfoil on top. I've already got a big piece ready to go. Everybody good with this? Hopefully. All right. I'm just going to move along. Okay, I'm sorry. We gotta take a break from the question for a quick second, because my timer just went off, and I don't want to burn the top of the pasta nest. So for those of you who are with me on that, where's my towel? It's right on my hip. Go ahead and put tinfoil on the top of this pan, and then put it back in for 5 more minutes. These aren't that fun when they get crunchy on the top. Okay.
That's your time.
Yep. So I've got 15 seconds left on the pasta nests, and I'm gonna go ahead and take them out. There we go. These guys should be good to go. All right. These are great. So here's the deal on these things. You don't try to get them out until they're absolutely completely cold, completely cool, room temperature. Let them go at least 20 minutes, 30 minutes before you try to get them out, because they're going to fall apart when they're hot like this. I sometimes, with the omnivore version, I'll take a butter knife or offset palette, and I'll go around the edge and loosen them, but I won't pull them out yet. These vegan versions, they do come out pretty well. You don't have to necessarily go around the edge, but the Omni ones, definitely you want to, let's do this. Something like this. Just go around the edge, just to loosen them from the pan, but leave them in there. Let them cool 100%. Same thing for both the Omni and the vegan versions. They have to be cold before you try to get them out, because otherwise they're just going to break. How's everybody's kitchen? Is it getting as messy as mine? Okay, let's talk about the wrapping of these things. So I know that I showed you guys in my video that you can get this stuff, this pan lining paper that has tinfoil on one side and parchment on the other, and it's one sheet and it stays together, which is really great. I don't believe that this stuff is available in South Africa. I tried to get it when I was there, I couldn't. These guys, Scratch Labs, they make it also, and it's already pre-cut and pre-made. But you can do something similar to this, and I figured out the best way to go with regular heavy-duty tinfoil. So when it comes to baked goods like these Hodduk, I'm going to get to that a little bit later. Any cake that you're going to make, the pasta nests, you don't have to sweat any parchment paper. Just regular tinfoil will do the job. But when it comes to the rice cakes, you kind of have to use the parchment paper, because the rice cakes, the sushi rice is going to stick to the tinfoil. When you go to open it, it's just going to break apart, fall apart. It'll be on the ground. You won't be able to get at it. It's not very, very easy to deal with. So what I do is I took a box of one of these, one of these rolls of tinfoil or something, and break it open to unfold it like this, and then go ahead and take a roll of tinfoil or whatever it is you're going to do, and you're going to wrap it. Pull a bunch of it out. There we go. You're going to wrap it around this box. So this is the width that I'm going to have. This is the length, and each one of these is going to be 2 sheets. So wrap it over. Do it again. And you can do this to an entire roll of tinfoil if you want. Just cut them up, pre-cut them up ahead of time, and then stick them in like a big Ziploc or something. And when you need them, you're good to go. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take a knife, and you can actually pull the center out and cut this. Okay. Put it over. Cut this as well. Okay. Now I've got these sheets. I'm going to fold them in half. And this ends up being pretty much the perfect size for making these, for wrapping these portables. I'm going to use that one because it's just a little extra on the flap there. Okay, so now I've got, these sheets pre-cut. Put them in a, like I said, a big Ziploc, and you're good to go. For the parchment, you can do the exact same thing. Where's my parchment? No, that one's empty. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to do a couple of these. Actually, I have already pre-cut them. No, I'll just do it anyway. Coming in. Back to this. So I've gone ahead and I've made, the parchment paper. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Fold it in half. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and fold it one more time. Because all I want is a center piece. Let me turn that off. Let me see how I want. Yes, this way. So if there's a bit, one side's a little bit longer than the other, you want to fold it on across the long side. There we go. So now when I go to wrap these rice cakes that will stick to this stuff, what I can do is I can take a piece of parchment, put it across the center. Excuse me, I'm gonna reach right here. It's actually a big rice cake, holy smokes. Probably shouldn't have made it quite that big. Yeah, I've cut it in half. Now it's too small, that's all right. Okay. Put these guys in here. A little on the fingers. Okay. I'm going to take the top edge and I'm going to fold it backwards with a good piece of the, a fair bit of the parchment paper as well. So that there's this lip like this. Okay. Now I've cut it too small. Hold this down over the top of it, just like you're going to do a Christmas gift wrapping over the top, and then push down on the sides of the food. And you can see that this has a little bit of a lip down here. See where my thumbs are? And up here too. You can take these and fold them to the center. Fold that to the center. Now just fold it back. And at this point, you can go ahead and write what this is on here. The biggest crayon you can come up with. This is awesome. Look at this. What is this? So, yeah, not the best job I've ever done with wrapping, but that's the technique. So again, let me just do it one more time. Just try to make it a little bit better. Yeah. I'll actually wrap one of these guys. Let's pretend this is a rice cake. Even though it doesn't matter, you can use the parchment paper for anything too. That's more of a normal size type bar, okay? Just go ahead and take the bottom, bring it to the top, the center. Hold your tab back so that you can write on it. Push down to the sides. Put the ear on one side, the ear on the other. Hold that back, hold that back. You're good to go. Oh yeah, well I did that earlier. You remember I took a big bite, but I'll do it again. So when you do them,
Brown rice also work, which is white rice.
those guys, 30 minutes, wait till they get to room temperature before you try to get them out, and then you can wrap them. And I want to talk quickly about some of my new favorite things. It's made such a mess here, sorry folks, but these are called Hodduk. These are Korean sweet pancakes. What's that now?
Break one open.
Break one open. Well, I found a recipe online from a Korean chef, and it's there. First of all, the dough is made with flour. In South Africa, you guys call it cake flour. We call it all-purpose flour here, but also with rice flour. And the rice flour makes them sort of puffier. And the inside is a combination of brown sugar, cinnamon, and nuts. Now, brown sugar, what we call in the States, has molasses in it. And I think that in South Africa, you guys call it treacle or triacle? Treacle? Yeah. So that's what's in here. Treacle, some chopped nuts, pecans. I roasted some pecans and some almonds and cinnamon. And these things, so great. There's a little bit of black sesame seeds I put into the batter. And you can pan fry them. This one was pan fried. Or you can bake them. This one was baked. This is one version. This is a sweet version. I don't know which is which, but hopefully this. Yes. Okay. So I made a savory version. And this has sweet potato and curry powder and some bacon in here. And this is just, these are just.
You could use
fantastic.
pancetta.
Yeah, you can use pancetta. Absolutely. That pancetta that we just made, you could do that instead of bacon too. Absolutely. But these are all right. So this is like a sweet and a savory version of these two kinds of cakes, and they wrap up the same as the rice cakes or anything else. Once you have this sort of Christmas present wrapping technique, like I said, Snickers bars, anything you want. Of course, the Snicker bar already comes in a wrap, but these Hodduk are my cool new favorite. I'm still working on recipes to try to come up with something that's unique, but we're working on that. The last thing I want to show is these are sort of cut a little bit weird, but this is a recipe by a chef, Hannah Grant. She calls them caffeine kick cakes. So there is coffee in here, but this is made with a red beetroot, and some oatmeal, some treacle, brown sugar. No, actually no sugar. It's dates.
Yeah,
That's right. So she uses dates to sweeten these things. So it's all naturally sweetened. Dates, beet, oatmeal, and some instant coffee.
And eggs.
And there's eggs in there for the binder too. And so this sounds like a bizarro thing. I'm telling you, you take that first bite, you go, I'm not sure I'm going to like this. You take that first bite, and you want the second bite. You want to keep eating this. These are just fantastic. They are so delicious. Can't go on enough about them. Hannah Grant, she's pretty famous actually. She has a series on Netflix called Eat, Race, Win. If you've seen it, if you haven't seen it, you want to. She's pretty cool. She's the team chef for Orica Scott during that. She's been team chef for several teams, Saxo Bank, Orica Scott, a few others over many years. And she travels in 2 food trucks with the teams as they do the 3-week tours and the bigger tours where they need to have their own food. And she's their team chef. And she's got a couple books out. And this is one of her recipes, caffeine kick cakes. Fantastic stuff. Great to ride with. I could send you guys links for all that stuff. So yeah, that's it, folks. I hope you had fun. I hope.
Super excited to eat these.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for a run in a couple hours. Put the first one to the test.
There you
Super
go.
Excited.
Great. Yeah, it's midday for us here in the States, and you guys probably trying to get ready for dinner over in South Africa. So. Thank you for attending, and hopefully you got some ammo for when you go out on your next big long ride, run, hike, whatever it is. Make some stuff and fiddle around with it. Definitely riff on it. You know the flavors you like. Go ahead and try different things. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Kevin. On behalf of
Thank
Club
you.
100, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Very informative. And about those pasta nests, I'm already thinking about bolognese going into that pasta. I
Yeah,
suppose it's just the binder that obviously will hold everything together. Because I get super hungry on the ride, so I'm definitely going to try a couple of options.
absolutely. I think a bolognese is a different flavor than the pancetta, so it's kind of cool. You obviously wouldn't need a heck of a lot of it, but that's a great idea. That's a really great idea. It's like a little Italian pocket thing, so you can pretty much do anything you want there. That's really great.
Exactly, and I suppose it beats the pants off the garage pies, that Tegan likes.
Yeah, that Tegan likes.
Yes.
Tegan eats anything. Have you seen her Instagram? I mean, it's like if she can get her hands on it, it's gone. Chocolate. We've heard that chocolate's a big thing for her. That's been like
my go-to is a pie and a bar one.
Yeah. You just got to hide it on her. So, because as long as she makes it a game to find it, then she's gonna enjoy. She's not chiming in to defend herself at all either.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to the next one.
Oh, cool. We'll come up with something. I'll future things I'm going to do, and I make them less extensive. We'll try to get it much shorter. But thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care. Thanks all for joining.